Starting with the tactical summary. Against Wolfsburg's press, Arsenal sought to play short and then force transitions. The centre midfielders would drop, the wing-backs pushed high, and the near-sided wide midfielders dropped to try and get those wing-backs into crossing positions, or the far-sided wing-back into a position to attack across. The far-sided wide midfielder would narrow to become a second centre-forward and threaten in behind, and allow Blackstenius to be able to either drop to link play or run into the channel. And due to Wolfsburg's pressing shape and the fact that they pressed towards the touchline, it did leave a lot of space for a switch to the free wide centre-back, typically Wubben, who could then drive as high up as possible. With Wubben making those runs, it allowed her to get into positions high where she could then spray longer balls into whether it was Blackstenius or Pullover, but basically into that right-hand side channel. Late in the second half, when they were chasing an equaliser, they altered the deep build-up with BT pushing into a centre-forward position, backed as a focal point. Arsenal rarely had midfield possession, preferring to utilise those deeper transitions or counter-attacking from regains in Wolfsburg's third. They were willing for McCabe and Catley to swap positions to disrupt Wolfsburg's defensive shape, and just as with their deep play, they were happy to play direct to the forwards running in behind despite the limited space. Going back to the press, the near-sided wide midfielder would press intensely where Wolfsburg were forced into passbacks and then try and keep pressing towards the other touchline or towards the Wolfsburg goalkeeper. And McCabe, of course, was great at this. Moving on to Wolfsburg's deep build-up, which usually wasn't particularly contested. Their midfield shape, which was essentially a 2-1 with Popp, Ruud and Huth playmaking. Although Popp could drop to left-back to allow Rausch to be able to push higher, Wolfsburg always had the option on regain to play early, long through the centre for Jonsdottir, who would narrow, and Pajor in behind, with Arsenal trying to press out in their 5-4-1 or towards a touchline to counter Wolfsburg, trying to combine in those wide spaces with the likes of Ruud or Popp having to overload. They did often create the option for a switch to the other fullback. Later in the game, they did play a safer 2-4 deep build-up, and on one occasion they used Jonsdottir's long throw. And with that, if you enjoyed the video thus far, please give it a like, consider sharing it on social media, subscribing. Let's move on to some of the examples. Starting with this scenario in the 8th minute, we have Wolfsburg building up in their 2-3 shape, where ahead of them we have Popp, Ruud and then Huth as the playmakers between the lines. This being against Arsenal's 5-2-3 pressing shape. Quick note on Popp's position, because while she's playing between the lines now, she occasionally did drop to left back to allow Rausch to be able to push higher up. I think this is a good position to also illustrate Arsenal's press, where, for example, if Ruud decides to pass back in to Willems, McCabe is going to want to press intensely towards Willems and force further pass back and try and see if Arsenal can get momentum all the way back towards Frooms in goal. And so we see Wolfsburg pass back to Janssen, with Pullover looking to immediately put pressure on the left-sided centre-back away from her player, Rausch, the left-back. Fortunately for Wolfsburg, they manage the pressure and progress in this left-hand side through Rausch, but we get to see Popp pulling out towards that left wing or left-back position, as well as also seeing Willems pushing high up on that right-hand side, Hoot trucking inside, as well as also Jonsdottir and Pajor basically playing as the centre-forwards. And in this, we also get to see how those centre-forwards dropped off the line to try and pull Arsenal defenders out of their back five and potentially create space for Jonsdottir in behind. Jonsdottir, who was an absolute menace when she got going. Arsenal were able to rebuff this attack. Janssen gets back into possession and we get to see that 2-3 or 2-4 shape set up again. But on this occasion, Janssen decides to play really direct, straight into Pajor and Jonsdottir running in behind. Probably not as much as Jonsdottir would like, giving her proclivity for counter-attacks and just driving runs. After the free kick, Arsenal get to set up into their 3-2 or 3-4, if you include the wing-backs. This being against a 5-1-2-2 pressing shape by Wolfsburg, where they would have Jonsdottir basically become the second centre-forward and she would press towards the touchline. This did mean that often the far-sided wide centre-back, so Raffaelli or Ruben would end up with a lot of space to be able to exploit, which is what Raffaelli is trying to do on this occasion. As the wide centre-back progresses, the wide midfielder on this side drops to try and link, whilst the wing-back tries to exploit the space left in behind. And then far side, the wide midfielder, so in this case Pullover, is narrowing into a second centre-forward position, whilst Blackstenius will be able to drop as well. Again, looking to try and confuse the back line as much as possible and potentially create space in behind. Unfortunately, on that occasion, the move breaks down as McCabe is fouled. Then we get to see the 3-2 again, and a lot more clear representation formation of that 5-1-2-2 shape and Wolfsburg pressing towards the right-hand side touchline. And then how that ends up leaving a ton of space for Moy to be able to run into, an invitation which he duly accepts, and Arsenal try to transition with a driving run and some attempted combinations in this right-hand side channel. These patterns didn't really change even later in the game. So we've got here again Arsenal set up in their 5-2-3 shape, defending against a 2-3 from a Wolfsburg throw-in, with Popp again dropping into that left-back position. Jill Roord between the lines with her, and Wolfsburg centre forwards looking to try and drop off the line to link play whilst others look to run in behind. Unfortunately, on this occasion, Moy intercepts and is able to start Arsenal on their way towards a counter-attack, which we'll get to see with some quick passing to change the point of attack and free Catley in this left-hand side. Fortunately for Wolfsburg, they're able to defend this and we get to see that pattern repeat again. However, I would say that slight tweak at this point in extra time did have Popp start in a deeper position. So we see here a 2-3 or a 2-4. Initially, Popp and Eidevall were playing as their CDMs, but then as Arsenal's press advanced, Popp started to pull out towards a left-back position and Eidevall pulled out towards this right-back position, allowing Wilms to be able to push up on the right-hand side. And as Arsenal committed to a side for their press, Janssen spread the play towards the free centre midfielder, allowing Wolfsburg to be able to take advantage of Wilms's high position and get her into a dangerous crossing position, which fortunately Arsenal defended. They did try to start a counter-attack, but Hurtig's back heel touch was poor and the counter-attack ended there. So I've shown a few scenarios of Arsenal building up, but they had a perfect build-up in the 32nd minute with a few wall passes around the corner, eventually leading to us seeing Blackstenius dropping off the line and spreading play with the wing-backs high, and Wolfsburg essentially dropping towards more of a 5-4-1 with Hoot as right wing-back, and Arsenal trying to utilise the width that their wing-backs gave them to get them into dangerous crossing positions, although in this scenario they never utilised them, despite having sufficient control to be able to get both their wide centre-backs quite high up the pitch too. And then I just want to mention the 71st minute where Eidevall made a tweak. Here we see Arsenal building up deep, and instead of having that 3-2 shape, we now have more of a 2-4 shape where BT has been pushed up into a centre-forward position, similar to how Mini Bright does with Chelsea, as Arsenal were chasing that equaliser. So Arsenal initially play short to draw Wolfsburg onto them and then play over the press into Marnham beyond that first line of the Wolfsburg press. Fortunately, Arsenal win a free kick. Off Arsenal's free kick, Wolfsburg are able to win possession, and we get to catch a glimpse of BT in her centre forward position as Arsenal press and force a turnover in possession. And then from there, we get to see a ball played into BT, whose touch, control and composure allows her to release Marnham, and Arsenal get into quite a dangerous position, but Marnham's shot is blocked. This was a very brief tactical tweak because once Arsenal equalised, BT dropped back to her defensive position. So I think with that, we've covered the main points. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, consider sharing it on social media, maybe subscribing. I'd love to know how you think Wolfsburg will do in the final, whether they have a chance against Barcelona, how you'd set them up, and with that, we're out.